G'day guys and gal. To say that Rylanor is universally loved and admired is the understatement of the century. The song dedicated to him has 13 million views, and his last stand is often referenced as one of the best moments in 40k lore. But is all this love and praise actually deserved? I know that sounds heretical to say, but as the Ancient of Rites, Rylanor was tasked with preserving the soul of his legion, something he failed miserably at. Then he fought alongside the loyalists on Isfan and his forces lost that. Then when he blew up the virus bomb in Fulgrim's face, Fulgrim survived and wasn't even banished. L after L after L. So why is our boy Rylanor so universally admired despite never seeming to achieve anything? No, this video isn't rage bait. I too love Rylanor more than my future unborn child. Before we get started, boy do I have something special for you today, as we launch not one but two new major minis. The first is the Ancient of Rites, a legendary warrior entombed within a walking sarcophagus, featuring incredibly ornate armor designs, a power claw and an autocannon. However, I love this model design so much that we also created a damned undead version called the Burning Ancient of Vengeance, showing off his rageful vengeful spirit reincarnated and ready to cause destruction. I just couldn't decide what aspect I wanted to represent such an awesome character in, so I decided to do both. We've actually added him to our pre-painted service as well, so if you want to get a fully pro-painted Ancient of Rites or Burning Ancient of Vengeance, then get in fast. Our slots usually sell out very quickly. The new service is elite. Link to the pre-painting service and new models is below. Today we'll go over why everyone loves Rylanor so much, including myself, like I made a bloody diorama of this bloke, despite his constant objective failures. Let's get into it. So for some context, Rylanor wasn't just some dreadnought that was well respected. Each legion had dozens of contempted dreadnoughts, and while those special dreadnought variants were reserved for heroes and champions, Rylanor stood a level above them. See, he was the Ancient of Rites, the keeper of his legion's soul. Rylanor would watch over and manage the recruitment of new Emperor's children into the legion, overseeing them from day one all the way until they became fully fledged battle brothers. Rylanor was also a part of Fulgrim's inner circle, made up of his advisors and closest sons. It was even said that Rylanor was so perceptive and pure that he could detect a lie the moment it was told. So how the fuck did he not notice his legion turning into a bunch of degenerate traitorous rapists? Even worse, how did he allow the legion to be full of traitorous rapists if he was the one directly overseeing the recruitment? The way a legion recruits massively influences the overall legion. For example, the Mortificators chapter were Ultramarines who recruited from a world full of cannibal savages. Over time, this caused the chapter to adopt a lot of the same culture and also engage in cannibalism. Was Rylanor just an idiot? Well, no, I don't think so. Although the lore doesn't explicitly say why, Rylanor never seemed to notice the true rot within his legion. We know enough to be able to paint a pretty good picture though. See, Rylanor was the Ancient of Rites before he was a dreadnought. It wasn't a special dreadnought role. Now this may be a bit of a no shit Sherlock, but day-to-day tasks are way harder when you're entombed in a massive walking tank that doubles as your life support system, that doubles as your coffin. Not just from a physical standpoint either. Being a dreadnought means your overall maneuverability is massively reduced. You cannot just walk around everywhere, visiting other space marines to check in on them or attend every meeting. Also, when you're in a dreadnought, you feel very separated from reality. You are aware of your weak, half-dead body floating around in a liquid life support tank, as well as feeling the strength of the metal chassis you inhabit. It makes dreadnoughts feel very disconnected and also makes them feel very impersonal, so Rylanor would have struggled to notice the changes within his legion compared to when he was just a space marine. As an example, when Bjorn the Fell-Handed became a dreadnought, he tried to stay chapter master of the Space Wolves, but due to the difficulties of doing his duty as a dreadnought, as well as the mental strain of being a dreadnought requiring him to take longer and longer naps, he had to pass on the mantle. Now Rylanor did not yet need to go into regular hibernations to keep his mind sharp, but he could not perform his role like he used to, with the Ancient of Rites role now being more so honorary. Rylanor was also now mostly confined to the Hall of Rites, maintaining it as a sort of museum for the Legion. Another thing to consider is that when the Emperor's children started to fall to chaos and become degenerates, they did a pretty good job of hiding their corruption. Marines would practice their debauchery in secret, and while there was an evident shift, the Loyalists had no clue how deep the rot went. They just thought Fulgrim was being a bit weird, and a lot of their brothers were being bigger fuckwits than usual. They knew something was wrong, but they thought it was more so a culture thing rather than a full-blown heresy and betrayal. Rylanor did notice that something was wrong, but Fulgrim and the other traitor Marines were able to easily hide most of it from him. Not inviting him to all meetings, confining him to the Hall of Rites, and dreadnoughts aren't exactly sneaky either. There was no way he could investigate what was going on without getting noticed. That is why Saul Tarvitz was the one to discover the betrayal, not Rylanor, since Saul was able to sneak around and figure it out. Rylanor had also been a dreadnought for decades before the heresy, turning into one when the Legion was quite small due to their initial gene seed issues. So while he made sure a lot of the OG Emperor's children were trained well and given a proper upbringing and culture, the majority of them were recruited while he was a dreadnought, thus wasn't wasn't able to guide them as well as he used to. So that's the explanation for Rylanor's first seeming mistake. We can still love the big man. Something I want to note is that when Fulgrim sent his loyalist elements from the Emperor's children to the surface of Isfan to die, he didn't actually send Rylanor, despite Rylanor obviously being a diehard loyalist. Rylanor only went to the surface because Saul requested they swap positions, Saul remaining in orbit to continue investigating while Rylanor led the ground forces. Rylanor, seeing that Saul's motives were pure, accepted, despite not really knowing what Saul was trying to do. This implies that Fulgrim had a soft spot for Rylanor, in a similar way to how Mortarion had a soft spot for Nathaniel Garo, or how Horus had a soft spot for Garviel Loken. He likely would have imprisoned Rylanor after the atrocity and done everything he could to corrupt him. This is further evident when Rylanor and Fulgrim would come face to face, thousands of years later. Instead of killing Rylanor, Fulgrim wished to turn him to chaos, so even Fulgrim loved Rylanor in his own twisted way. In regards to his performance on the battlefield of Isfan, you can't really blame the dude, as victory was literally impossible. You had a smaller loyalist force, reeling from the betrayal, low on supplies, fighting against multiple enemy legions led by Primarchs, backed up by orbital support and titans. It was an insane feat of effort that the loyalists lasted as long as they did, and that they killed as many traitors as they did. Rylanor played a big role in that defense, only withdrawing when all was lost into a deep bunker that had something spicy in it that the loyalists thought they could maybe use. However, a squad of traitor noise marines followed Rylanor, wounding the dreadnought before he managed to kill them. So Rylanor did not let anyone down or disappoint. He fought like a hero of legend, even surviving the noise marine attack. Against the odds he was pitted against, victory was never on the table. Now, I don't want to presume, but I think repairing and arming a virus bomb and then reverse engineering noise marine tech to create a beacon that could be detected from light years away and in the warp is a pretty fucking difficult thing for anyone to do. But Rylanor managed to do it as a wounded dreadnought who had an autocannon and a power claw for arms. I'm talking like insane science shit, and he did it as a half-directed dreadnought with nothing but a power claw. To be fair, it did take him a few thousand years to figure out, at which point he had gone a bit insane, but despite the isolation and mental load of staying awake the entire time, he remained loyal and true to his purpose, and his purpose was to kill Fulgrim. Now, we all know what happened next, but I'll recap it anyway. Using the noise marine tech, Rylanor sent out a signal, a beacon, that reverberated in the warp. Fulgrim heard it, as did Magnus. Magnus sent a team of Thousand Sun sorcerers to investigate. Fulgrim personally left his pleasure planet, one of the few times he ever did because he was so intrigued. The trap was set. As the Thousand Suns arrived, Rylanor ambushed them, grabbing one of them. However, Rylanor wasn't aware if the Thousand Suns had fallen to chaos or not. As you know, he wasn't exactly plugged into the Wi-Fi, so he didn't kill them. However, Fulgrim then arrives. Now, the awesome thing about Rylanor is that he didn't have this big speech prepared for his father. He literally saw his dad and was like, "Fuck you," and then detonated the virus bomb he had armed. No ceremony, just results. However, the bomb's explosion was contained in a force field by the Thousand Suns, delaying the blast, but not removing it. Rylanor then attempts to kill Fulgrim the good old-fashioned way, but Fulgrim disables his weapons. Only now did Rylanor whip out the speeches, and they were epic, burn after burn, as Fulgrim basically promises to violate Rylanor in return. The Thousand Suns are so in awe of Rylanor's purity and honor and so disgusted by Fulgrim that they allow the bomb to detonate, killing themselves and Rylanor. However, it did not kill Fulgrim. See, Fulgrim was a demon prince, and Fulgrim also had extreme regenerative abilities, second only to Vulcan. These abilities massively improved when he became a demon. Hence, Fulgrim has never actually been banished or killed, one of the only demon Primarchs to have avoided that fate, as even really serious wounds he suffered would not banish him. Even as the Life Eater virus ate away his form and then a fire blast turned him to ash, he managed to regenerate on Isfan. So you could say that Rylanor's plan was a failure. Thousands of years of meticulous work and planning for nothing, only his own death and the death of a few actually pretty chill Thousand Sun sorcerers. But that wasn't really the point. Success or failure doesn't dictate if you should be loved or not. Fulgrim did lose that day. His ego was permanently scarred. He was denied something he wanted, and there is even a popular theory going around that Fulgrim's 40k form is so much uglier and less majestic than his 30k form because of his humiliation at the hands of Rylanor. He was so humiliated that when he regenerated as a monster, not as this terrifying but beautiful creature he once was, meaning Rylanor could have permanently scarred his father. It also could explain why Fulgrim has been hiding on his pleasure planet, instead of decimating the Imperium. That is just a theory though, but for me, it's 100% headcanon. So despite his near constant failures, the failure to stop his legion from falling to chaos, the failure to beat the traitors on Isfan, and the failure to kill his father, why is Rylanor so revered and beloved? It's because he never backed down, never faltered, and never took the easy path. Being loved isn't based on how successful you are, it's based on who you are and what you push yourself to achieve. Rylanor was a paragon of honor and nobility. He was so awesome that he literally convinced traitor marines to let themselves die just to inconvenience Fulgrim. You were a real one, Rylanor. Rest in peace. Or maybe don't. Maybe come back as a dope as hell legion of the damn dreadnought. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Ancient of Rites, or the Burning Ancient of Vengeance, or why not both? If you want to get them pre-painted, then there are new slots available for that as well. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more base content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.